morning, everybody. Good morning. All right, all right. I am glad to have you here one more time. I'm Walt Ellsworth II. Many of you know me because we've been here before, and we've done this before. This public education piece in dealing with our relationship with utilities, specifically TECO, and it does in fact intersect with other cities and towns with regard to their energy issues and energy crises, as we call it. And I just thank you for being here again to talk about this issue. This morning, we're going to actually do some work. I mean, we're really going to get down to it. And I want to thank the people who are officials that are here this morning to actually sit with us and do the work. All right, Jan Hertek. My chief. Come on, kids, stand up. And Carl. They're in charge of reviews for the city of Tampa. Caleb's the chief, Carl's the assistant, and I really appreciate you guys for being here to help us to identify these issues that we have, to parallel our problems that we're going to be talking with some folks who are our counterparts in Canada. As you know, many of you know, the Tampa Electric Company is owned by Emera. Emera is its mother company, and it's in Nova Scotia. And we have been talking with these folks up in Nova Scotia for some time now to try to figure out how we can come together to put some pressure on TECO to treat us better, to do better than what they have been doing, to actually hold true and keep them honest towards moving towards 100% clean energy. Right now, we're not seeing that. There is no real indication of them getting rid of these coal combustion plants that we currently have right now in Big Bend. There's no indication that there's going to be a move to some sort of fluid move away from gas. What we're seeing is a move towards gas. And instead of just moving towards gas, we're talking about increasing gas. We don't want to do that. We're trying to do something that costs us less, right? It costs them more money to have to operate these systems, and it costs us money because they're going to make us pay for it. And we're telling them that we know this and we need you to get to something that's going to cost us less. There are people out there right now in this building, around these communities right now, who have a really tough time trying to make that change, that what they call just, right? The just transition to clean energy. Just access to clean energy. These are things that we have to make sure are going to happen in a just way, in an equitable way. For too long, we've had to deal with issues of people who have to make choices between getting medicine and paying a utility bill. People who have to deal with eviction because they can't pay a utility bill. They have to deal with children who are being taken out of the home because of the environment that they're in. It's not conducive to them being there. Why? Because they can't afford to pay a utility bill. A utility bill. There's something wrong with that. Something seriously wrong with that. And when we talk about this issue, we have to make certain that there are other people who are involved in this thing. There are people right now who are going to be calling me this afternoon, going to be calling me for the next month or so to try to get on and figure out what we're doing here to see how they can do the same thing where they are. Because other energy companies are doing the same type of thing, right? And we have to be the ones to set the pace, right? So we're going to come up with actionable items today, right? And we're going to come up with something we're going to do called burn the bill. Burn the bill, all right? It's not that violent. We all going to burn these bills, but some people brought their bills today, right? But we have access to people's bills and we've seen them. There's something wrong. There's something seriously wrong. And we have to do something about it. When your bill jumps from $200 to $546, 2 months back to back, there's something wrong, right? I have my uncle here today who brought his bill. They're making him pay $500 and some deposit after you just paid a bill that was $500 and some.
But they refused to change the date of my bill.
Come on. There's something wrong with that. People are having a tough time. they're asking for you to change the date on the bill because they can't afford it. There's something wrong. And they're not addressing it with us. There's no transparency. And I want to talk to you about that this morning before we actually get on with Canada and talk with Gretchen and Peter, who are in Nova Scotia. Okay? So let's get some feedback. What are we noticing in our community right now? What's happening? Yes.
I noticed in my community, say if I'm new and I'm renting a house, then TECO told me that I had to pay like a big deposit because of the history of the house, not the history of me. And, when you come here and you rent and you find it out, it slaps you in the face. You have no idea about it. And those are things that, we need to know because why should I have to be penalized for somebody else's mistake? When I just want to rent the house and put my family in it and live happily ever after. But we can't because as soon as you move in, they tell you have a $500, $600 deposit. And it's not because of you, but it's because of the history of the house. Totally unfair as far as I am. And I think that, and they're still doing it.
All right.
Yeah, I'm 83 years old, and I live since the pandemic, I live in a fixed income. So, TECO wants me to pay the bill around the middle of the month, or I get my check like the first of the month. So I asked them, can you change the date? And they refused to do it. So they charged me $600 deposit because I'm making my bills. And so what they did, they broke it down like 200 for 3 different months. So it's putting me in a jail.
Oh, you're not fixing income?
$571.87. That was my last bill. I got a bill due 9/26 for $542.83.
Well, what happens if you don't pay? So you're not right.
So what I'm thinking perhaps is to close the account and put it in somebody else's name. So,
Something wrong. And these are not, it's not just a matter of logistics of shutting off or moving in and things like that. There's the cost that's involved with them having to do the operation. And the public does not know this. They don't know that. They don't understand the reason why they're doing it, right? And one of the people that really understands this lady right here, Brooke Ward. Brooke, do you please give a good explanation to folks about why this type of thing happens to folks who didn't understand that?
And why the bills are going up?
Right.
Yeah.
And why they're facing some of the things they're facing.
Yeah, so in Florida, our utilities have basically a monopoly service area. And so we don't really have any sort of free market with our energy where we can go somewhere else if the bills get too high. And the decisions on how these bills are ultimately approved or not comes from an appointed body from the state government. So you're looking at DeSantis and the Florida Senate. They're actually going through this process right now. And the people making the decisions are not accountable to us. And year after year, the administration has passed bills that allow more giveaways to utilities on the backs of struggling Florida families. And so what we have seen now is that the utilities are able to pass off every cost that they have, from executive compensation packages to, yes, the cost of keeping energy going. But what a lot of them are doing too is something called gold plating nuclear, where they're just finding excuses to charge you more to upgrade infrastructure, because when they upgrade infrastructure, they're able to get more money. Because the way that they make their money in Florida is something called return on equity. So the more equity they have, the more infrastructure and stuff they have, the more money they can take from us. Additionally, in Florida, they can pass on all of their costs of fuel directly to you. They don't have to assume any of those costs. But there's a sticky situation in Florida because our investor-owned utilities also own the infrastructure bringing in the gas. The gas companies more money for the fossil fuel infrastructure, so they keep going through that cycle over and over. And who's paying the cost? We are. Struggling families, year after year, are paying more and more, and now we're at a place where Florida's paying some of the highest bills in the country. And it's not because it's hotter here or we need more energy. It's because the system we live in allows the utilities to do that. Did I answer your question?
That answers my question.
I have a good story on the opposite side.
Sorry, right off everybody.
My bill went down this year. I'm paying less than this year than I did last year. And I have solar. I added on 5 years ago. I did a do-it-yourself home permit, put some solar on. It was a fun project, but I make as much energy as I use. But what TECO did with their latest rate hikes was they lowered the daily service hookup fee. Last year it was like 70 cents a day, so it came out to, I was paying $27 a month roughly for, forever, pay attention to that. And then this year it's been like $15 a month because they lowered the service fee to 43 cents a day. So it means that a person that's fortunate to have solar is now paying less. The energy burden is being shifted to those that are not fortunate to have solar. And it's really cruel after a disaster in an area to make the less fortunate, those that aren't, that don't have solar, to bear the brunt of that disaster cost.
Yeah.
And I think that's messed up. That just does not make sense.
Thank you, Todd. Thank you, Bruce. One of the things that we have to make sure that we're keeping in mind is that these are usually what we call underserved. We could actually change the terminology because we use the term frontline communities, right? And what was happening was, and this is just before you came on board, Chief, we were talking, using the word frontline communities, right? Well, a frontline community can be any community that is being bombarded with disasters, right? Bayshore would be a frontline community, right? But they don't have the same resilience factor that we have. So when I say we, I'm referring to the poor communities, I'm referring to the underserved frontline communities. Now, that's the difference. It's kind of like making the difference between gentrification and in situ gentrification. Two different things, right? But when we talk about, I digress, when we talk about this particular issue of what it's going to take to do what needs to be done, the focus needs to be on these underserved communities. The underserved communities. If we can help them out and help them build up their resilience, if we can get them out of this hole that these folks have in the face, it's abysmal. It's abysmal. And we look at that, and then we have other things that compound with that. For instance, we have the issue of the urban heat islands, right? They're greater in certain communities than they are in others. Yet, the only data that we have on it is a very generalized data piece, right? And we need to do more research on that, Chief. We need to figure that out. We need to be very upfront and honest about that particular issue. And we need to figure out, hey, listen, what is the urban heat island factor in, say, East Tampa, Sulphur Springs, Town and Country, places like that, and try to figure that out, because right now, there's a generalized piece that was based off of a study that was done from Pasco County down to the airport. That's it. That's what it's based on. That is not enough, not even near enough. And so what we have to do is get that study done. We have to look at the issues of people who have to deal with mechanical issues, right? The air conditioning, right? What are we doing with that? How are we servicing those people to help them when they can't afford it, or when they don't know when there are certain services that are available? Because there are services that are available, but many of them, they're not well advertised, number one. And number two, they're very limited. They're extremely limited. You use it to a certain degree, and then that's where it stops, right? So, we need to come up with a solution there. Some funding that could possibly go into a pot that can pay a certain group of people that can go out and get this done. It was supposed to be done before, and didn't happen, right? And then we look at, and when I say it was supposed to be done before, money was given to Tampa Hillsborough Action Plan some time ago, and they did it for a time, and then it ran out. That's it. And most of that money really didn't even go to Hillsborough County; it went to another county, right? And so we've got to look at what we got to do here, right? And so there are illnesses that we have to take into consideration, right? We've got to look at these illnesses. What illnesses? Well, COVID is one, right? But then we have to look at pre-existing illnesses that exist that are really, really causing some major problems in this community, diabetes, things like that. It does factor over into food access. It does, right? So how do we deal with that? Well, we have to support. I've always been a big supporter of cooperative economics and cooperative grocery stores, right? Co-ops. How do we do that? There need to be programs perhaps that are set up that can teach people to set those things up. And there are people in the community that can help do that. So I think that's just one aspect. I don't want to monopolize that. I just want to put it out there, right, for us, because we're now 10:46, and I've got to get us online with our Canadian counterparts. So I want to hear back from everybody on this, because I'm going to go ahead and see if you please, Councilwoman, I want to hear from you on these issues and see where you are. My first question to you is, I got to ask you, just like, and Brooke knows, we got to ask, we've been to City Council, I think you were on council when this happened, and the resolution, no, you weren't on, this is just before you got on. The resolution was passed that City Council was going to go push forward with the effort for 100% clean energy by 2030. 35.
For municipal operations.
Right, 30, that 30 was doing 30, all right, let's do that. So anyway, we're gonna push for 30. But no, whatever we gotta do to get this done, 35 is fine. But whatever we gotta do to get this done, and we wanna know where you stand on this issue with us. Do you stand with us on this issue? About our pressing TECO on getting some fairness, some equity on this.
I think that there's absolutely room to have the conversations to figure out what we can do. But a lot of the stuff you talked about prior to that, of helping people harden their homes, homeowner occupied rehab grants. You're right, we are trying to get more of that out to the community, and I'm sure that Gil has talked to you about that. But from our side, that's absolutely how we can help. We put more money into homeowner occupied rehab, especially in East Tampa. That's the CRA. And included in that is pretty much your 4-point inspection: roof, electric, sewer, and AC.
Right.
And the AC is key, because that can help people upgrade from, if they have a broken system, that we can come in and help with that. The part that people get confused about is that in order to do that, we put a lien on the house. And what people are afraid that means government's gonna take your house. And that is not at all the issue. The issue is, if we're giving you, say, $50,000 to do all of this work, we don't want you to then flip the house and sell it and take that money. That's not a good use of citizens' taxpayer money. So what they're saying is if you stay in the house for a certain period of time, I think for $50,000 might be 10 years. Yeah, and then so every year you owe less. So if you did have to sell it, you just have to pay back a portion of what you borrowed. It's not taking your whole house. But liens are a very difficult concept. We don't do a good enough job of explaining that. Because we also, one of the things that we're doing in the CRA is tree trimming as well. So because you're talking about the heat effect islands, one of the things we have to do, more trees. Unfortunately, have very limited programs outside the CRAs for that residential rehab. And I would love to see that expanded so that we can help people with what we can do. And that is, hardening people's homes, helping them be more energy efficient with fixing the things that we can fix. I definitely would love for us to be we're trying to harden a lot of the city buildings that it makes sense to harden. So I think that we are slowly but surely working on that.
Okay. What about the issue of the elimination, if you will, of fossil fuel use? For instance, coal combustion is down in Big Bend. It's a problem. It's a serious problem. Big Bend's operation is costing us money.
Oh, absolutely, and I think it's we were just talking earlier about return on investment and what's the best return on investment, and being able to put more solar. I would assume wind would work here too, but solar and wind to try to bring those costs down for the people. I think that is absolutely something that we could encourage and hope that TECO can do. And I think the more people, as you say, that get involved, the better a chance for that to happen.
That would include in the retirement, and that would mean the retirement would begin, truthfully. Because otherwise, we gotta shut that down, because they're gonna keep using it.
So I want to piggyback a little bit if I can on something that I just mentioned. And this past decade, you gotta understand that solar has changed quite significantly. Panels weren't as efficient as they are today. Okay? Because of the adoption of solar, more companies are researching ways to get these panels and be more and more efficient. So the panels that are being sold today are 50, 60, some are even 80% more efficient for the space that they're occupying. Okay? So that's one big thing we gotta understand. Those costs were astronomical before for the amount of panels that you needed for a house. Now you need as many, so the costs have gone down a little bit. And so here in Florida, we're very privileged in the sense of the solar industry and the lower costs compared to national level. Right now here in Florida, you can expect less than $3 per watt install, while in the national sense you can see it almost $6, $5 to $5.50. So we have a lower implementation market here, but that does help us in trying to get solar as much as we can. And then the third point is not every property and not every place is good for solar.
Right.
And that's very important to understand, especially in areas where there's a lot of shade. And then you gotta balance it. You need trees, so you need shade, lower the heat index. But then you need solar, but then the trees create shade. Where are we gonna put the solar? If you go ground mounted, which you can go to the roof to avoid that shade as much as you can. If you go ground mounted, then you cannot have trees all around that huge array. So it's a complicated problem. There's gotta be a balance. And when you tackle one, you might be impacting the other. And you just gotta be mindful of that. Now as a city energy manager, I tend to look at that for infrastructure in the city. And not all infrastructure in the city is viable or feasible for solar. And we understand that. But we do tend to target those buildings that are good for solar, and we start with those. And we've seen tremendous impact and lower bills when those systems come online.
So my question would be, when we talk about the size of the house, right? It being for that particular house, or inadequate because of the size of the house being too small, probably wouldn't do as much good. So we have to find other means of reinforcing or building efficiency for those houses. But then there's another aspect of that which deals with the issue of the people who don't own their own. We're talking about that's the majority of the people in the in East Tampa, West Tampa, and Silver Springs, California, Silver Springs, don't own their own. Now, how do we deal with that? Because I've always been in favor of doing an ordinance, that actually says to these snowbirds and people who own these things, that are absentee landlords, that let these houses go to crap, between the time that they bought it and the time that they sell it, or the time they bought it and the time that they decide that whatever, they just don't care, right? And leave these people out there with nothing, which is what you find quite often in these communities. How do we deal with that? I've been in favor of an ordinance that says you're gonna penalize that. And we would, as a city, be having to deal with, reinforcing those homes for people who live in it, you know?
So the state preempts a lot of that type of, an ordinance like that we couldn't pass because of preemption from the state law. But going back to the CRA and the home owner occupied rehab, we actually have a rental occupied rehab as well, where we work with a landlord, where they can do that same thing, that 4-point improvement. And as long as they promise to keep it, but at a lower area median income, so they would, if you're already renting to a lower median income and we help you, it's the same thing. It would be a lien on the property and then a promise to keep it low income for a certain number of years. And as the lien went away, that requirement might go away. So we are doing creatively the things that we can.
Does that, it is a thought. Collectively, we as citizens, as organizations, as people who live, in these communities, the churches and so forth, especially churches, come together and come up with funding that, the church got the tithe, they got the building funds. Let's put let's talk with them about getting this and urging them to be a part of a program maybe where they can literally go out and actually do this, like doing for self, right? In these communities, we got to start doing for self, it seems, because there is a lot of mistrust. There's a lot of mistrust, but we also have to build trust. And I think that if the city supports that type of program where perhaps churches or organizations and so forth come together to create an organization along with and a council there with the city and its agencies. We come together and put those names together, we probably get a lot more done in terms of that.
Sure. I would also love if, I don't know if there's any federal funding available for that type of energy hardening. But that's the kind of stuff that if we were able to get those type of grants or those types of funds, that we could continue. One of the grants that we did receive, I don't know that we have it anymore, was money to plant trees in Justice 40 areas. But the plan, the federal government pulled it back, but the plan is still there, and we do have the ability with some of the tree trust funding we have to still implement part of that. So we have some plans in place. What we don't have, I think, is enough of the public understanding that these programs are out there. And quite frankly, it would be great if we could even get TECO to assist in some of these while we're working on trying to get some cleaner energy.
What are your thoughts on this?
Oh, I was saying that's great. With the contract coming up in just a couple of years, that's a great bargaining chip is to talk to TECO Electric and part of, if we're gonna sign them under contract with you, we need these things to be put in place. So I think that's an excellent idea is to get TECO involved.
Public agreement, with them and one that with them, city and community. And one and two would be to look into doing some sort of transparency town hall. I met with Archie Collins about a year ago, and by the time we got finished doing the bus tour, things like that, and we gotta stop the meeting and get online. By the time we got finished doing the bus tour and things like that, we were in a situation where, people were not happy. To learn that there are coal ash ponds that have been, that were supposed to have been remediated, but we have no idea, first of all, that they exist. Most people don't even know what a coal ash pond is. But then the existence of the coal ash pond and then the remediation of those ponds, because he says he extracted that stuff from ponds that were unlined for 40-some years, and then put them in one big pond that was lined, right? Now, I've seen the pond, the big pond. It's lined apparently, so I'm just saying, we don't know about the other stuff. We have no idea what the impacts were with those other areas that made up about 10 acres of area, of unlined area. That's a problem. No more than 10 acres. That's a problem. So I think the people need to know some of that. So there's a transparency issue there. The transparency issue that people like my uncle and people like them need to ask questions of TECO regarding the building processes. How does that work? What are we doing here? You know, what can we expect from you? It's just a lot that we don't know. A lot we don't know.
Well, I'll just one more thing, just kind of go back to the nonprofits, and availability. We don't, it's not city funded, but we did offer a solar program for residents. It was a group buying program. It used to be in the co-op model. It's similar, but it's not exactly a co-op anymore now, so it's a group buying program with a nonprofit called Solar United Neighbor. So that we just ran through it. It closed up earlier this year, and so we're hoping to continue to have that every year, but not only residential properties is that available to. It doesn't solve the rental component, unfortunately, but also nonprofits like churches or just 501c3 entities, and small businesses can take advantage of basically just the economies of scale. You go to Costco, you get a better deal because you're buying more of it, and so kind of lower and also provide some safeguards, right? There's the distrust of the people who are coming at your door knocking on solar, and we always say just be aware, because sometimes what they're selling you is a finance package. They're not necessarily in it because they care about solar, and so not everyone is the same. We have to be vendor neutral, but just in general, those are some sentiments that this program kind of provides that safety where you're going to get the warranty and expertise, and then the group rate unlocked with your community that's over accountable.
Okay, all right. And there has to be some articulation between the city and the county regarding these issues. So,
I did not sponsor that this year, and there's no payment from us. It's just an agreement to work with Solar United.
right. Well, I expect that we're going to be, well, I know we're going to work very closely together to get these things done. Theo, please.
Well, my son, I like what the gentleman there was saying, that he's only paying pennies for the electric bill. But my son was tricked into get a solar panel, and he got solar panels, and then he got to pay $200 a month for them. I don't know how, so I've been doing a little research. He's paying $200 for the panels, and he's paying the bill, I don't know, but I've been doing some research, and I have found that some solar panels, you have to make the bill. For example, if you sell your house and it's not in the small print, that you're responsible to continue to say the solar panel. We would like to have solar panels in this property, but you don't know what solar panels is telling you the truth, because they,
I want to mention real quick before we head into that. Since we have had the 30% solar tax credit from the federal government, a lot of companies, especially solar, have been going out here in Florida trying to install as much panels as they can. And a small companies or new companies emerged in the past 6 years to try and take advantage of that. Those credits are going away, have gone away after December. The companies that will remain will be the experts or the more knowledgeable in installing these. The reason I'm saying this is you will have a lot of companies that will install you solar in a place that you won't benefit as much. Then you will get your bill. That's why we said that companies out there are only financial in the contract. They want to sell this system, but does it benefit you? And that expertise, usually you won't find it now with the solar companies that have gone out of business because of the last 2 hurricane seasons and because of the solar credits going out. So I'm working with Caleb, trying to see how we can put out there for the community ways so we can improve that knowledge and put knowledge out there so that people can understand that if solar is good for them, how they go about getting it in a safe way, instead of getting a contract that they won't benefit at all.
I see a lot of ads on my phone that,
Oh, yeah.
that say
That's why they go on campus, right? They don't go to door. They're very aggressive. Or they use.
But I did a little research, and I got a friend of mine, the people that saw him, the whole family, haven't, complied with they told him that he will get credit when he does the income tax. So that's, something that some of the whole companies are not telling you.
There's a lot of going on, and he was so bad. So what we're going to do right now is now 6 minutes after 11, so we're behind. We have the folks from Canada on the line. Gretchen, can you hear me? All right. I'm going to adjust myself here, and go to the other side over here for the area, so you can see everybody else, okay? Everybody can see you, but you can't see me. All right, thank you very much for being with us. All right. Let's see what we can do. Yeah, we got sunshine. We got that. Okay, everybody. So we have here. Can everybody see Gretchen?
Yes.
Gretchen, can you see everybody else?
Yeah, I can see a lot of the roads that it's.
Okay.
Someone's online too, Andre, I don't know,
Yeah, Andre's having to host it. Give me one moment.
Okay.
We gotta get on that,
Speaker.
the speaker.
You gotta connect it.
Okay, good on
Yeah,
that.
Bluetooth, yeah.
On the computer?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so, everybody, we have, made contact with the folks up in Canada. Gretchen, can you introduce yourself to everybody and
Yeah, so yeah, I hope you can hear me okay. My name is Gretchen Fitzgerald, and from actually her, I'm the executive director for Sierra Club Canada Foundation, and just really glad to work with Walter and you all on trying to get America to step up and do what it should be doing for communities and for climate change. I'm based in Nova Scotia on the East Coast, in Halifax. And Nova Scotia Power is the subsidiary or the company that Emera owns here that is the monopoly utility from London. So very familiar with the regulator myself. And yeah, we work with Walter and others in the chapter there to try to call them to account at AGMs and stuff like that in the past. And yeah, just really hoping we can find some alignment and monitoring your experience as well. I work on a lot of campaigns, I don't know if you sell for every campaign, but I can often find the information needed so we can work better together. So, and just thanks for having me at the meeting.
Absolutely. So as we move forward with this whole thing, Gretchen, we have this thing called energy burden that is happening right now, primarily because of the continued use of fossil fuels. And the fossil operations that exist right now, are, the costs are coming back to us as customers, right? After we've consistently asked that there be an open and honest, move towards clean energy. And we're just not getting it. We're not getting it. Now, the reason, let me be clear to everybody, the reason that we're having this conversation right now with Canada is because they are serviced by Emera. Emera is the mother company of Tampa Electric, okay? And so perhaps there's something that we can find in the impacts that they've had to deal with, or maybe some governance issues that we can probably find with, that can help us to determine how best to approach the type of pressure that we can put on Tampa Electric Company to do what we need them to do to make us whole, right? So, Gretchen, what are you facing right now? What are you facing right now in Nova Scotia with Tampa Electric Company regarding this, and what are you regarding the issue of the energy burden, first of all, and what tactics do you use in order to press them on these issues?
Yeah, and I guess we do have a benefit here that our government has taken the tactic of being, standing up to the utility, because the utility, Nova Power, owned by Emera, is not very popular.
Right.
So sometimes that benefits us, sometimes that hurts. The government isn't always aligned with what we want. But yeah, we have some of the highest energy poverty, so people who can't afford to pay their energy bills in the country here in Nova Scotia. And one of the things that has happened in the last couple of years, just with regard to, and I'm not sure if energy burden is the same as energy poverty.
Or if it's more like is it the same thing or is it different? Is the energy burden to everybody or to folks who really, have struggled to pay the bills?
The energy burden really is to folks who struggle to pay these bills.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, so here, they've been required to create sort of an affordability task force of sorts. And that might be something, I think they'd be quite embarrassed, that they're not doing everything they should be doing on that, of course, but at least they've been required to do it, and that could be something, even if the government there, and I'm presuming, I'm not sure if they would be governed by the municipal government, or if there would be a statewide regulator or something that applies to them. In either case, you might not have good political leadership that wants to take this on, but it could be something the company itself would kind of leverage that. Okay, you're doing that in Nova Scotia. What about in other places where you're profiting massively off of people? Why don't you make this a company-wide approach where you have to address this issue? So that's one thing, and that's more on the affordability side. And then on the other side of like forcing them to get off of coal, they really are still kicking and screaming with the coal plants, and they want to put up a natural gas peaker plant here. But one of the tactics that did work and actually started the government here taking on the utility more, which they hadn't done in decades, so this is a pretty relatively recent phenomenon, was that they tried to shut down local solar by increasing the fees for hookup, and people rose up, and it was awesome. And basically the government said, "Whoa, boys! Like, we're not gonna allow you to ask for this from the regulator. You can't shut down local solar industries that way." So I guess I'm trying to think, like, it sounds like solar is way more advanced, maybe with good reason, in your communities than it is here. Maybe not, but that's my impression.
No, we're behind.
But you are behind, okay, but there's businesses, there's like everybody mobilized, it was great, and that was one of the things that was like, you can't create barriers to us And I know there's been rollbacks in the states because of your federal government, you know, with regard to subsidies for all kinds of clean energy, but if there's a way to mobilize that kind of, you know, it was Sierra Club, it was the environmental community, but it was also the small business community was like, no, you can't do this to us, and it actually, like I say, kicked off this dynamic that we're now seeing, where for the first time in decades, there's a government here who wants to like do things to break the monopoly somewhat and kind of allow renewables on the grid.
Yeah, okay, so.
That's two things that come to my mind, yeah.
Yeah, was it 2027? 2027 is when the contract with Tampa Electric Company comes to. That's when they have to figure out what they're gonna do and continue that, the service from Tampa Electric Company. Okay, so my concern is, number one, in terms of, I doubt very seriously they would go and do what, increase the hookup and that. We don't have no people going in the solar. That's the biggest thing, because there's so many obstacles to that. And I think right now, if I were to step away from it and look at it from a different perspective, perhaps if we would look at it from the standpoint of, if you try to look at it from governance, that's going to be kind of hard. And the reason is because they just had the energy omnibus bill that was just passed not long ago, right? That energy omnibus bill was more of a pro-gas type thing that moved them to, that helped them to be able to increase gas use for energy production, and as opposed to moving away from gas and moving away from any fossil fuels at all. But in this particular case, we're talking about them taking away government ability.
Right, it's pathways of the local government are stifled by the governance at the state level.
Right.
At this point.
Through the omnibus bill. So they can literally run gas lines right now, as long as they want to, as far as they want to, where they want to, how they want to. They can burn it the same way, and county government and city government do nothing about it. And so.
Is this the big beautiful bill, is this the federal legislation, or is this state?
This is better than the big bill. This right here is horrible.
Or the big ugly bill?
This is like, yeah, the granddaddy of that one, it seems. But, you know, I've talked enough. Everybody want to say something about this? Yeah.
I just want to point something out. I think it's very important for us to note that these preemption laws are in place because companies like Tampa Electric sent multiple lobbyists, wrote the legislation in some of the instances, and spent millions of dollars to make sure this legislation tied the hands of local governments. So these power companies spend millions, if not billions of dollars to curry public favor. I mean, do you go to any major event without Tampa Electric's logo plastered all over the place? Mm-hmm. And we just found out that Florida Power and Light was paying people more or less to show up and speak in favor of the rate hikes, going, yay, I love rate hikes, right. While regular citizens who were coming out, regular residents, saying these bills are, you know, a threat to my family and to my ability to continue going on, to just cover the voices of the people. So the biggest lobby, I don't want to say the biggest, but one of the largest lobbies we have in the state of Florida is the utilities. And they are spending the money that they have to make sure that they can continue to do this. And that local governments like Tampa that had pushed for some really amazing policies weren't able to do everything that they wanted to do because they preempted at the state level.
So the hands are tied.
Yeah, and whose money's doing it? It's the utilities.
So so the question then becomes, what kind of pressure then can we put on them? I mean, what tactics can we utilize at this particular point? because, government is out pretty much, except to say, okay, yeah, we stand with you, we're cool with you,
We're here.
we're here, right. I mean, look, we got them here, they're here, they're trying to help, but I mean, what can they do, what can we do, right? I know it's not hopeless, right? Since we're in this quarters right here, and saying this, I can tell you right now, we have someone here right now that is going to show us how we can utilize our own, how we can go and buy our own solar panels and utilize them to begin a protest that we have to shut down the use of those high energy products that we have, or appliances we have in the house, where at least TECO will feel that we'll be able to say, listen, this is what happened. We can do this on our own,
And that's like slow build, but that's what worked here, was that the fact that people had solar on their roof, or they had a contract with someone who was gonna put it up there, but that contractor was saying, can't do it because they're gonna raise the fees, that's what made people go, wait a second, we're gonna push back, but that's, it takes a while to build that constituency. I think in some ways, and there is this group called Energy Democracy, I forget what they call themselves, but they're actually doing some workshops on the utility playbook, because it sounds like they have the same playbook everywhere. Like, they go to the regulator, through all the jigs and rails, ends up doing what they want. And then they get the rate hike, and we all pay for their mistakes.
Right.
And then, the ball bounces down to another court. The way to disrupt it for sure, like you're saying, is to set up different systems so people have alternatives. And I think start to do that, and start to work with industries that will be like, we would put a solar panel on your roof, but guess what? This is the barrier, and those people will impact what they can, basically the politics of the whole thing, and that can help, but that can take a while to build. But even us now saying, by the way, wind and solar would be far cheaper than your natural gas, and by the way, the price of natural gas goes like this, this is not unpredictable anymore. We know it's gonna be going up and down, it's a very volatile energy source, so it's not like that's a question anymore. So you have the economics is on the side of renewables now, and energy savings, of course, like energy efficiency. So you got that. It's more like building a constituency with the other industries so that they speak up, so that there is more political pressure to fight back. And I realize in your context is a big hedge with your political context from what I understand in Florida as well, very superficially from Canada, but but maybe at the municipal level and maybe different levels. But then there's the other piece is the PR piece, like shaming them to, you're doing this affordability task force in Canada, what the heck, what about us? And I think that actually would play very well in Canada. Like, I think people would be very ashamed, like if we've got some media out here on that,
Yeah, you can. Now, real quick, some folks are gonna ask me questions, but I'm gonna say this. One of the things we're gonna do today also is we're going to look at writing letters to specific board members of TECO. Public letters, specific board members of TECO, specifically dealing with a particular fault or an issue that we have a problem with, and saying because they have actually, they're board members, they support it. Here you go. You actually supported this. You know what I mean? So in publicizing that point, we're saying, okay, you go down the line with different board members. This month is so and so, next month is this person, next month is someone else. And we go down the line with each person who's a member of the board of directors for to have legislature. I think that is something that we can do. That, like she was saying, Rachel said, somehow shaming. I think that's a good way of shaming them. If there is any shame at all, they'll feel it that way. They'll feel it that way.
We put together kind of a brainstorming list of actions of what people can do for affordability, both individually to save money and then collectively. What can you do through your homeowners association,
question here. Please, go ahead.
Okay, Gretchen, how you doing? Yeah, my name is Andre, and in 1978, I was living in the state of Washington, and I worked on windmills and the solar alternate energy systems. Well, in 1978, our governor passed a federal PURPA law, and that law was, the intent of it was to help open up other companies that can use renewable resources and tie into the grid and, you know, kind of sort of help power companies. Well, I'm not sure if that's still today, but the power companies were required by law to buy the energy that you did not use. They were required to purchase that. Now, I'm not sure if that's the same today because the PURPA law is still on the books.
I don't think we have, that's, what's the rule on that now? On buying our leftover energy?
Yeah.
They're not
As far
doing
as
it?
net metering?
Yeah.
Net metering is, that was, actually, they tried to get rid of net
Yeah.
metering, but enough people in a conservative area of the state, in the panhandle, yelled back that DeSantis ended up vetoing the legislation. Just because it was vetoed once, though, does not mean that there's not a chance that it will come back again. So that was a lot of nods. There is a chance that that legislation will come back again.
Yeah.
But currently, we still have net metering in Florida, which means if you produce extra energy,
Yeah.
you can, it gets credited to your bill.
Because I wanted to ask her if the companies that she represents, if they adhere to that here in the United States.
Well, I don't know if TECO does. They should, if that's the law. They have to do that here in Nova Scotia, like I have solar panels on the library. And I just got a small check of $180 for the utility because over the summer, there's actually producing more than what I bought. Now, they're not paying me back for my investment, I gotta get a loan for that. But at the same time, like, that's, you know, that's better than kicking the head, and eventually they'll pay themselves off. So, you know, even better if it's like they have to pay for putting them up there, but that's, you know, we can dream. But yeah, it's our, it basically belongs to the house, it belongs to us, and we've made a loan and bought them, but then at least we get something back, and we don't, for what's extra. And I presume in Florida with your son, there'd be an even better check than $180.
I think, probably already answered some of it, sorry, I was not paying attention, but, yeah, so you said, I had heard that metering, so basically, we don't get a check sent to us, it just becomes a credit, like your meter rolls back, essentially, and so it's just, it rolls over into the next month, and then you can use it, but you're never gonna get a check from TECO because you got extra.
Well, that was the implication when the law was first made, that you could receive.
In South Carolina, they have.
You get a credit essentially on your account, you said you use.
No cash anymore.
Yeah, you use last month than you produce. Basically the grid acts as the battery, is kind of like how Carl would say it, right? It holds it, and then when you need the extra at a future time, then they give it back to you for that credit.
There is one caveat to that, though, is that if, for instance, every month you produce an excess,
Yes, you never get it.
that
You never
after
get it.
12 months, they kind of cash it out and onto your bill, so you don't get a check. But what they want is they know they're gonna charge more for energy next year, so they don't want you to accumulate enough to keep going forever. So they're hoping that eventually.
So it's on a 12-month.
Yeah, it's in a 12-month rolling period, so after 12 months.
That I didn't know, so
Right,
I've always
yeah.
wondered, I'm like, there has to be a cutoff.
Yeah, there is a cutoff
Yeah.
eventually.
Yeah, and that's why in Florida, which is unfortunate, but in Florida, it's not good to have systems that are oversized. You want your system to essentially average out on a 12-month period to equal what your energy use is for the year. If you're producing a bunch of extra, you're basically giving people a bunch of electricity that is, you produce at a lower cost to them, but then they go sell for a higher cost.
Yeah.
So you're not, it's not really benefiting you, so that's when it comes to the ROI, scaling your system and figuring out what's the right system type for you, you have to take your energy use into account. My understanding is there's other states where you can have an oversized system, give a lot back to the grid, and then they will incentivize that, in places like California. And so
reach out to neighbors? Or give it to neighbors?
It has to be used on site.
On the site,
On
okay,
site.
all right.
So like for the city, we can't go build, somewhere in the middle of nowhere if it's not being used on that site. So it really
An
is.
extension cord.
Right. Which we're gonna,
Yeah. The meter.
right. We listen to them about that.
But we could change the laws in Florida to make that legal.
Right.
And there are organizations like Solar United Neighbors who had that co-op program you were talking about, who have been actively fighting to do that. Because right now, you can't put solar panels on an apartment building, because then the landlord apparently becomes a provider of energy,
Right,
which is
they're the
illegal.
utility.
Yeah, so we have to find ways that our laws change to allow us to make the changes that we want, so we can have community solar.
Yeah, because, it used to be that, like, the excess energy, a portion of that could be taken and applied to bills in the underserved communities. You should say there's a whole gamut of things that we can do, but it just seems like that the energy companies, they're always thumbing their nose at us.
Yeah.
And the ideas that we come up with to help, they're kind of sort of, I think they pacify us.
They preempted and they pacify you for a while.
Exactly.
And then what they do is they'll join your organization or whatever it is,
Yeah.
keep your mouth shut for a while because they're friends.
Yeah.
And then you're delusional about the realities of what's actually happening, right?
For instance, for me, I used to design alternate energy systems in the state of Washington, and these are things that I came up with. But in Washington, they had something called the Bonneville Power Supply Company, and Washington, they bought all these bonds. They took all this money from these people bonds for 5 nuclear power plants. They only got one of them going, but the money that these people lost, right? So okay, I'm a farmer. Now I got irrigation to think about. I pay electricity. My bill's going up. So hey, windmill. Let me see about a windmill. So okay, so he looks into it and we find out that the purple law, avoided costs and all that. So we hook them up. But if the avoided costs were $2.14 per kilowatt hour, they dropped it down to $1.14 per kilowatt hour. So that took the investment right out of the picture. And that energy that we produce, portions of it can go back to help underserved communities if the power company would listen. So,
Well, the power company ain't gonna listen.
yeah, I know.
Unless we engage them. So, which brings us to the next issue, which the issue actually is the pressure that we're looking at applying here. Is that type of, and what kind of engagement can we give them outside of what we're doing currently, to make them sit at the table with us? Because they'll sit at the table with us. They'll sit at the table with us. But we cannot have them patronize us at the time that they're sitting at the table. You get what I'm saying? We cannot allow that. I mean, they tried that a couple times, and Brooke and I have been, wow, yeah, we've been in rooms with them. And, it turns out that, it's nothing. It turns out to be nothing.
Yeah.
So what we're trying to do now is make certain, Gretchen, that that does not happen anymore, right?
Yeah.
We
Yeah, I
have
totally
to
agree
know.
with that, because that's been our case for decades. It's like,
Right.
yes, dear, yes, dear.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't help when you're sitting in a room with an elected official, though, who just goes with whatever they're saying. And it's like, oh, yes, you're so great, you do everything wonderful. Because that's one of our biggest problems right now is we need more elected officials who are speaking out about this too. Just earlier this week, I don't know if I shared this with you, Walter, Collier County, one of the most conservative counties in the state, passed a unanimous resolution opposing Florida Power and Light's rate hikes.
Mm-hmm.
And then Pembroke Pines, a couple of months ago, did the same thing. I got a call from the attorneys who are working on the rate case right now this morning and said, keep doing this. The more governments that do this, the PSC is talking about this all day. They're afraid to pass these rate hikes when they're hearing from these governments that are saying, we collectively stand against these rate hikes. So if we could get our Hillsborough County Commission, which we tried for 3 years to get them to say something, but most of them are in bed with TECO, not literally, but figuratively. And then, we're hoping that maybe the city of Tampa will do something similar, because Tampa Electric's asking for another rate hike. They just got one last year, they're asking for a new one in the new year.
So somehow, I think that one of the things that we gotta do, without question, is make sure that we continue to publicize that information. That, I don't think people realize that is happening right now, right? That they're formulating that request for a rate hike, another rate hike. They just got a rate hike. And there's also the energy omnibus bill that is going, that the rate hike is going to be able to support, financially, along with some other stuff that, Lord knows what that is. And so I think we've got to publicize that effectively and efficiently. And we got to give them a very visceral response, a very visceral response. I think it's gonna have to take, a couple of press conferences. So let's put that down. Press conference is definitely a possibility. Well, not possibility, that's gonna happen. We're gonna have press conference, that's for sure.
Get someone elected to stand with us.
Yes, which is why I had, the manager today to see if we could stand this on this issue outright. I'm gonna ask those specific questions of her, if she would stand with us on this thing. That's number one. Number two, it's not just me, it's Louis and Guido and everybody else on the city council. Who on the city council will stand with us on this? I can tell you, that's one. Two, we're not gonna get county commission to do anything. Not even the ones that are supposed to be for us are gonna be doing that.
That's when we get new ones in next year.
Hopefully we get new ones in. So we have an election coming up, next year in the spring, right?
Yeah.
In the spring.
No, fall,
Fall.
2026.
Fall 2026, because they're campaigning now.
Mhm.
So, yeah, we had, Clinton Robinson that was on the bus tour, who's running for County Commission District 3.
And Louis Vieira,
Louis Vieira running for, state rep.
yeah.
State rep, that's right. He's running for, Fisher Driscoll's seat. Okay, yeah.
Doesn't TECO put money in all these people's pockets?
Yes.
Yes.
He does it, so for some of them, yes. Others, no.
Okay.
And the biggest thing is the organizations that they are doing this with, right? I've seen them do NAACP. I've seen them do Urban League. I've seen them do some very critical partnerships, USF and so forth, where we should be able to get the type of support that we need to for these things for the community. But when it comes down to this, it's just not, they're not willing to stand with us on this because it goes against that particular, area of the policy that they're trying to get done. Yes, sir.
Quick question, can we address the possibility of buying the local utility, like, becoming more like Lakeland or Gainesville?
Will it owned by the city?
Yeah.
I think that's something to discuss. Definitely something we can push, something we can discuss, because as we approach 2027, that's something we need to lobby for.
Yeah.
So that's a long-term lobbying point that I think we need to look forward to. right
Yes, so we got St. Pete and Clearwater,
They opened it up.
looking into dumping Duke, and they perform feasibility studies, and just performing a feasibility study gives you leverage.
Yeah.
So even if, you don't buy back the only utility, you're putting, chips on the table, you got some leverage, and hey, we're looking into this.
Okay. All right. Are there, one question I'm gonna ask for Richard. Richard, in the board up there, what demands are they making? Are you aware of any demands they're making of Tampa Electric Company right now regarding the move towards clean energy?
I'm not aware of that, but I might not know that type of thing, that's the thing, so I could probably try to find out.
Okay.
I was thinking like definitely leveraging the anger over the constant ask for rate hikes. That is what created the political space to get the changes in the regulations that we got here. So that's like I was talking about with regard to solar. So I think if you're doing a press conference, like try to get the solar industry there, they may not want to do anything political, but behind the scenes maybe they will. And because it's that anger that actually creates the opening for after decades, like I say, finally, they changed the rules. so, so that other players can get on the grid. And that, you know, that's a huge industry potentially that could be active. And that's the type of thing municipal leaders listen to, state officials listen to. But yeah, I just wanted to say, like, definitely if you're gonna do a press conference, I would try to like then say, and you know what? Solar is cheaper anyway, so let's get on with it. Like, the reason they keep doing these rate hikes is because they invested in fossil fuels and we're sick of paying for their mistakes, you know?
Right.
It's the same as here. Even when they buy fossil fuels, they put that in every rate hike application, that what they think the fossil fuel is gonna cost. And guess what? It's always more, but even when it's more, they go back and get another rate hike. So we pay for that mistake too, and in addition to the interest. So, yeah, it's just, it is a playbook. So, yeah, also I just encourage you to, I put the webinar link up there. I think it's a US group actually hosted it, but there is a playbook for these utilities, and it's really, like me listening to what they're saying. Like, they do a playbook, like you said, for lobbying and getting all these regulations twisted in their favor. But yeah, I can research that to see if the board here, just to answer your question, Walter, is doing anything with regard to, you know, committing to get off of fossil fuels or, you know, supporting communities, particularly communities that are having trouble paying the bills, get the solar panels up there.
Yeah, and I mean, you have to take into consideration too the false narratives out there, which are only amplified since January 20th this year. But there's a next door, which I try to abstain from because of all the petty bickering on next door. But the only thing people can talk about is their $600 utility bill. They go on there and just type away their lividness about their electric bills. And so I made a couple of posts like, yeah, TECO, look at the money behind it. Look at Emera stock that's up, 30% for the year, and it's paying out 4.5% dividends to their shareholders. And so, I'm putting these facts out there. And comments are, you have to acknowledge that, they're paying the price for their solar installations that have failed. They're blaming the green revolution. And you're getting this rhetoric from the very top. You're getting, this rhetoric that the Green New Deal investment has failed and now we're paying the cost. And that's why our electric bills are high. That argument is out there. And that's one thing we have to, we have to fight against that.
Okay. And then, there are myths out there. There are myths. I had to fight a bunch of myths about solar energy when I came in, right? And it was like pulling teeth in, especially the black community. It was like pulling teeth because they believe every damn thing people say to them. And because nobody knew anything about solar energy, it was like, okay, it's solar energy, but it's gonna cost so much more than this, and they're gonna take my house, and they're gonna do it. Everybody's afraid they're gonna take the house. Yeah. But there was from Pace, from Pace, from TECO, and everything. TECO played in and out, but it blows out.
The one I heard now is that the solar panels give off radiation.
Okay.
The inverters give off radiation and it will give you cancer. And that is, I haven't heard that one until this past year, and that's the new one out there.
Yeah, it was saying that about talking to the black farmers, being concerned about that also, and I said, absolutely not. That is so false. It's not reflected. And they were talking about the leach.
Like a meter or something out there with you and show them. Sometimes seeing is believing.
Right, take a guy kind of but I think the one that got me was the leachate from the solar panels. Yeah, they leach out into the groundwater when you make the landfill. I said, yeah, but how do you? I said, first of all, there's no leaching like that. I'm afraid that's not how it works. I said, second of all, when you're talking about landfills, how many landfills are there that really exist? They have like a whole bunch of solar panels that's just sitting there on top of anything. It's not there. It doesn't exist, right? You have some Mad Max world with just solar panels all over the place. And so it's just like, it's just crazy. So I think if we went to social media and made some sort of creative social media piece that actually dispelled those myths.
I would, my advice is, I would love your son for that. I think that they have all the expertise, flyers and everything kind of ready to go.
That one was right here.
Did it?
You.
What was the, what?
Solar United.
Solar United,
Work
yeah.
with us. Like,
Yeah, I'm
they're,
aware of
they're they're a vendor neutral nonprofit.
Yeah.
Whose main mission is to educate people on solar, that's it, they're not trying to sell you anything. So that ends up, I think, being something that people feel more comfortable with, because it's like if you have a vendor who's trying to educate you, they can be saying the right thing, but they're like, you're just trying to sell me something.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
like, to a certain extent, they are, like, Sun is not selling you anything, right, so they're just there to be an education.
So we use that as a possibility.
Yeah, and I know actually the International Sierra Club is doing some stuff on misinformation and how to counter it, because I'm on the list. I don't know if any of you folks subscribe to that, but they probably do have some tips and resources for that, because that's definitely, like, getting the message out from you to your neighbors instead of, to counteract this stuff, or being there before they hear that information is really important.
Yeah, the time is
Yeah, we have the same problem.
Time is everything.
Like, we could say it, but some people aren't gonna trust it because it's the city, and if it's only me at the city saying it, that also is not helpful. It's like, we leverage more voices in the community. People are more willing to trust their neighbors and their friends or their family than they are government officials or staff.
Yeah.
So we can figure out how to deal with that by finding someone or some people that can together and actually put that, get some funding and actually do like I said, a documentary or something like that, informational pieces that we can get out
Yeah.
to the public.
Or just short videos, just even you, Walter, saying that,
Yeah.
so where's the landfill full of solar panels? If this is, what I mean?
Right.
Sometimes
Some days,
humor
man,
helps too,
you
don't
know
it?
how
Not
to-
making fun of
you
people,
know how
but
to-
like, let's just be real here, yeah.
Where are the ash ponds for the solar?
What's another?
Where are the ash ponds?
Right, yeah, we wanna know where that is, where is that? Yeah, I look, that's a good one, I like that one. But no, yeah, I do it, look, Rachel, I will sure do it. So, yeah, let's do that, I want to do that. Are there any other questions, anybody got any questions, y'all? I'm surprised.
My question, so TECO does put their name on literally everything.
They do.
Okay, now my biggest grievance with TECO is that they have the naming rights to the home of the Tampa Bay Lightning up for sale, which is literally electricity, and somehow that goes to, a mouthful, benchmark, international, whatever.
Oil company.
I would have paid more for my bill, on my bill for TECO to have naming rights. TECO Arena is much better than Benchmark International Arena. I mean, this is our reputation here at Tampa. We have to own this Benchmark International for the next 5 whatever years. Like, TECO, I'll take TECO on that. But that's my grievance.
I'm gonna take you into
And
the
it
office.
would have made sense, right?
Yeah,
It's electricity, Tampa Bay Lightning, TECO. How did that go? I don't know.
If you don't know Todd, his sarcasm is deep, so.
I agree with you, though. I think it all blends in. So,
Yeah.
you get somebody to
They can, give me a rate hike for naming rights to TECO Arena, yes. Save me from the Benchmark International embarrassment that is now plaguing us.
Yeah, and we actually, our biggest park here is called the Commons, Halifax Commons, and they've taken it over with what they call the Mira Oval, which is like a skating rink in the wintertime and basically a loop you can bike around on in the summertime, but yeah. The branding is really important to them, but that also means they care what people think about them, So with all the health issues, with the coal ash and this rate hike, they care. So make them,
Wait a minute, hold on.
make them really care.
Let's go back to
Thinking those two things, that's an opportunity.
Rachel,
Like we did a cool
to environmental health?
I think definitely folks here in Canada, hearing about what people are experiencing there thanks to Amira, that would be something that the media would be interested in and people would be interested in and shareholders would be really embarrassed by.
One of the concerns that I have.
So yeah, I think that could be something we could work on. I mean, they only care as much as they are regulated to care, let's be honest, but, and that takes pressure, like, to get the fly ash from to get that regulated, they just have to be pressured to do it, and they'll do it, but, creating that pressure would be helpful.
I think that's an angle.
Through some communications and outreach and just bringing people's experience, because I think people were shocked last time you folks were up here, folks from here were up here, like, about those impacts, and I think, it's not something that, definitely Canadians want to hear that a Canadian company is doing.
I think one of the concerns that I've been voicing for some time is why it is that coal ash has not been named a hazardous waste officially. It's hazardous. It is definitely a waste,
Yep.
but it is not officially labeled a hazardous waste. If it was, it would end up on our national pollutant list, which means that TECO then would have to really, it would cost them bucks.
Yep.
They'd have to deal with it because they produce it, and now of course them to shut down their coal combustion plants. So, I mean, somehow, I'm gonna keep pushing that issue, but I've gone as far as to actually go to Washington DC, and talk to people there in the EPA office about that issue. I think Michael Reagan dropped the ball big time when he did not deal with that while he was the secretary of the EPA. Because we had disasters that were going on at the time that he actually took office that were major disasters dealing with coal ash. The Tennessee Valley Authority, North Carolina, South Carolina, there was Tennessee, Alabama. You had the situation on the coast of Jacksonville. All these things happened, and it's like, okay, I felt like I was the only one saying anything, right? And it was just on something that people just put on the wayside. But I'm saying that's something I think that if we don't address now, I think we're going to lose that opportunity again. Even now, with rollbacks that we're seeing under the Trump administration, I think even now we have an opportunity to really put some pressure on these guys about this coal ash. Nobody wants that responsibility, and I think with the letter that we send out, one of the things we need to include in there is to press these folks about allowing the production of coal ash and knowing what it can do. Yes, sir.
I've dealt with pond issues like that before, and there's no technology to stabilize the contents of these coal ash ponds. It's not cheap, and the thing is that if you roll that cost of responsible management into the cost of coal, suddenly solar and wind become much more favorable.
Yeah.
In other words, if you put the cradle-to-grave cost of coal power in there,
Right.
not just, it costs us X amount of dollars to buy the coal, but it's the cost to get rid of the coal ash that really drives this, that if it's properly managed or properly accounted for, drives the cost really much more toward renewables.
Okay.
We need to find out a way, to figure out a way to get that point across.
So, I think that's something important, is to actually press that issue. Because we're seeing too many situations around the United States, and especially in Florida, we can ill afford to have another disaster where there's any encroachment on even the line home. We cannot afford to have that.
If we have a storm surge, tell us how the storm surge would do that.
The storm surge would be horrible. The storm surge would create a toxic slurry that people have to walk through if they're caught in the storm at all. But then after the storm is over with, this stuff ends up in the groundwater and in agricultural areas. Not only that, but, you know, this stuff dries up, flakes up, you're breathing this stuff.
And it gets into the, marine environment
Yes,
and
destroy estuaries, yes.
Well, have you ever engaged on the water quality side with captains for clean water?
Not with them, like,
I don't have any personal contact, but they kind of are seem to be one of those like on the forefront of water quality issues in Florida. A lot of folks in the Everglades, obviously. But I feel like, you know, the water quality and the whole ash on like that, I don't even know if they know that that's a hazard or an issue that would be a possibility. I don't know if they have that. Great.
we talk to city planner.
city planning, one of the,
So is Big Bend not converting to natural gas?
they have natural gas already.
There's one smokestack, right?
One step.
So they're still burning coal,
Still burning coal.
and it's supposed
and
to,
gas.
they're supposed to convert that coal power plant to gas?
Okay, so there's a couple things. We don't know what to do with that damn thing. We don't know what to do. Again, transparency is everything, right? We don't know. And there's nothing that's been flat out said in terms of what the future holds for that. That's one of the two. We do have, there's gas out there, that big thing, right? But then we have another issue. They just made another damn gas plant over to the McDill Air Force Base. Okay, that's a problem. Right? Unknown to anybody else, they have a gas plant, power plant, out of McDill Air Force Base. So those folks down at Port Tampa, you know, just screw y'all, you know, we're just gonna put a power plant out there, and that's just it. You know, I just think that's as far as that's as much as we know, and that goes back to the issue of transparency issue that we have with TECO. And I think that is something that we need to write to Emira about, to let Emira know, listen, we have a problem with your transparency with your company down here. Your little child is running wild and walk like we're saying that. Your child running wild like a child walking. You can't do that. And not expect that people are not going to say anything about what you do. And they're doing it, and the only thing has not been said is because people don't know anything about it. The second they find out about it, that's when they say something. But even then, they don't know the severity of it until they're faced with it. Right? I'm just being straight honest with you. I can't tell you how long it's been for me to talk to this man right here to get him to come out to this event. Seriously. It's important. Right? When you hit with it, you gotta show up. You gotta deal with it. That's just the way it is. It's true. Right? We cannot wait until people just get hit with it again and again and again. We gotta do something now. They're preempting everything. They beat us on preemption. They got us on preemption. Right? Brooke, how many times did I try to warn folk within Sierra about what I knew was coming down the pipeline, and we didn't do this, now we're gonna come up with a preemption. It's just a pattern.
And it's a national pattern. They like to blame, like, years ago when we were passing the resolution for the city of Tampa, Tampa was being blamed for the legislation that was going on in Tallahassee. But it was a series of legislation across the country. It goes back to that playbook. They try to blame the actions of local governments and of organizations fighting to protect people, when in actuality, they already planned these things out well in advance. And so, it's a fear technique. They control us by trying to make us afraid to do anything, saying we're the trigger for these things happening. But no, we are the only ones who can stop these things from happening.
And then we're gonna go to Gretchen and close out.
Just wait till you see the ugliness when the real, climate disaster issues come in. They're gonna go kill the scientists. They're gonna say, oh, you know, you scientists, you're responsible for this.
Anybody else? Anybody have any questions, comments, observations?
tough.
It is going to be very tough. So, we're gonna write this letter, so.
We need more people.
No.
I work for the city.
You insulted her. You apologize this minute.
Go work for the.
Oh, well,
No, it's okay, I work for the city of Tampa.
Because I was gonna ask, why do we get, we don't tend to fill out that grade? Why are we still receiving, $300 to $600? It's not making any sense.
Yeah, obviously, I don't know for sure, but I mean, some of the charges, right, my understanding, some of them is just to be connected to the grid, there are service charges that are attached to that. So you're not just paying for the electricity that you use, you're paying for the service fees and the other things to always have the opportunity to pull energy when we need it. You know, and there's a give and take there, right? Like being connected to a grid provides you some resilience of like, you don't have to be the only one producing your own power, even if you have solar. If you have a bigger energy need than your solar can provide in that moment or at night when your solar is not producing any energy, they're providing you a service, right? So there's that, but then, you know, there's some of the charges and what they are, there's controversy.
Yes, quick question.
Sure.
At one point, they were talking about, instead of net metering, they were talking about just offsetting the fuel costs for, you know, for the feedback to the grid. And I was wondering, is that the case now?
I don't believe so.
Good.
Yeah. I mean, you know, being transparent, I was like, I live in a multi-family apartment, so I don't have solar, so I don't get to see how that works, but Carl has solar, you know, he practices when he preaches and is able to use, like, he charges his EV via the solar on his house as well. And so through his bill, but he lives outside of TECO service area actually, so his provider is a different utility. But my understanding is it's just the service, the charge of what energy you use is the net metering aspect, but I don't know if my, no more. I don't think it has to do with the fuel charge or the storm charge or any of the other charges.
I mean, all of the charges go down when you're not being charged for energy. So I actually have Duke as my provider. And so, what happens is it shows, this is how much energy you use, this is how much energy you produced, and this is how much energy you had left over from last month. And it's simple subtraction. They take the amount that you used, subtract what you produced, subtract whatever may have come through the last month, and then they apply the energy charge, the fuel charge,
Okay.
and the base
Yeah.
charge.
So-
Now, do we pay more because even as a solar customer, our base charge is higher?
Well, don't forget that we who use TECO are paying for their $1 billion new campus here in.
Oh, yeah. Because they're moving to Midtown because they know downtown is more susceptible to climate change.
Right.
So you have to pay for them to move, but who's gonna pay for us to move out of the way?
Right. Go back to the house. Question?
Wow. Yeah, well, I mean, so many things are the same, like, and just, we do have to have each other's back, like, I hear you, Walter, like, we've gotta show up, for each other, and, it is so infuriating that, yeah, so much is stacked against so many of these battles. On the health front, like, I was hoping Peter Boyles could come in, because he's actually lived in a community and had success getting them to stop. It wasn't coal ash from waste ponds, it was more just coming up and stacked, but it was landing on people's houses, on kids' toys, on swings, on cars, like you could see, you know? So, and he did get them to move, but he got them by getting the government forced them to move. But I guess if we think about the AGM next year and having some photos and having some testimonials from people, again, I don't think people here in Canada want to see a Canadian company doing that kind of thing, so there could be something we could move in that direction so that they actually clean up those ponds. That's how, no one should have something like that. But yeah, and then just, I guess, encourage all of you to be doing it, the utility playbook webinar, I was scared to link to it, I'm gonna do that, because I think learning this playbook and just knowing it's a playbook can help just lift the veil, like, it's like, no, all this stuff is just, and if we can seize the power, like, if we can start actually building our own energy systems, like through solar and things that actually work for people, I mean, I think that's definitely the way to go, and, in terms of your press conference, asking for those changes so that, I just sent you the link, but I can send you more about how they changed the rules here so that people can hook up to the grid and there's more options. Because the more we literally take the power from them, like take that from them, the less say they have, and they have to listen. But right now it's so stacked against us, there's no, I'm not diminishing that because it is infuriating. But yeah, and on the affordability too, same thing. It's like, you've got a task force in Canada, why don't you have a task force here? So yeah, we can use some of the things, the little baby steps they've taken here to force them to take some steps there, but also just publicizing what's happening, and just really appreciate y'all being here to talk about it, because I've learned a lot.
Well, we want to thank you, Gretchen, thank you so much, and, I'll be back in contact.
Communication open, yes.
Thank you. I'll be back in contact so we can write out some more.
Yeah.
Of these concepts, okay?
Yeah, and if we can help, let me know, and, yeah, we could have big pictures of these waste ponds at the Emira Oval, you know? We can project them on our building, we can do stuff.
I think that'd be all.
But, remember, have some fun too, even though this is schooling, so.
Tell Peter
You
I
gotta
said.
laugh sometimes or else you'll
Bro,
cry.
I'm trying to tell you. Well, tell Peter I said hello, please, and I'm sorry.
Yes, he's a counselor, he's actually a town counselor now, so
Right.
maybe he's in a meeting, but I know he really wanted to be here, so, we'll get him on the next one, maybe.
You know, on this. All right.
Okay, and tonight too, she sends a hug, virtual hug.
Yes. All right. Tell him I said hello.
All right.
All right.
Okay,
Peace
take
out.
good care.
All right.
Yeah, peace.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
I have a QR code, and if not, I can write it.
All right, everybody. All right, so, whew, that was a very good meeting. I think that was very productive, right?
A lot of information came out of that.
A whole lot of information. And I think that with that information, I think I saw some, I saw some lights go over your head.
Yeah.
In fact, you can ask a question, like, yeah.
Basically, my name is Dave. I was listening about the installation of solar panels and the issues that they've been having with it, leaks on the roof, people trying to sell their homes. We want to take on the responsibility of paying the solar panels off. Tidal agencies have issues dealing with that. Is a homeowner or a buyer going to take on that responsibility, not being able to sell the home, $30,000 being tacked on. That was one of the issues that a lot of people been asking me what this is right here. This is my emergency off the grid solar panel.
Yeah, before you get started, let's have lunch, first. And then we'll do this. How about that? Wanna do that? All right. So we got, just let everybody know, we have lunch, so we have some sandwiches, things like that, and wrap. David is going to show us how to utilize these solar panels effectively, right? To the point that it will be like a protest, right? The more you're using these things for different appliances and things in your house that draw power out, guess what? The more you use these for that, then the less money we give out to teachers. She just got to be saying. I mean, that's common sense, we know this, but it's like before we didn't. I don't think we brought together to really say, can we actually do that? Is that allowed? That's very allowed.
long as you don't have the electrical panel.
All you gotta do is shut off those things. Kind of like your refrigerator, shut it off, plug it into the thing. You good, but you're not cutting the wires off. You get what I'm saying? Yeah, you're fine, you know. So we're gonna show us that this afternoon. So let's get, you know, let's get your food and, you know.
No, they're not even sending a bill.
Hopefully my schedule will free up so I can be there.
Yeah, he said Wednesday afternoon seemed to work.
It's really the best for me.
For all of you, okay, perfect, so that's what I think if that's the case, it might not be till October 1st, because I'm in office next week, but then the week after, I'm out of town.
Yeah.
So then it'll be
I think that's fine, because I really think what we'll be building is as this next street light comes.
Right,
So
okay.
we do have some time right now.
Yeah,
So, you know, I'm hoping we can talk about some of the things that we can do with the city council, support you guys, while also treading this new line of the world that we're living in.
yeah.
Because, I mean, like, I was talking to Courtney Wright, and, she was telling me, like, how
Let me,
some of these CDGs are
wash my hands here and get
denied,
this
like,
ready
of just one trigger word. So we don't want to be there, but we want the solution. Calling in resilient,
There, yeah,
You know,
well,
yes, you wanna be in
any
the
business,
big
there's shady business that use
I
cars.
would even say we need to diversify our
There's
energy
shady
mix, which is
business.
language.
The way the world is, it just gets so bad.
Only gas, you know?
Right. Yeah, always, it is a little,
Yeah, use it against them, but yeah, I was like, how can you say
Yeah,
that?
that's great.
Good seeing you always.
Mr. Smith?
My baby. I love you. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
baby.
of course. I think for water quality, I've seen cabinets for clean water be very, just personally, like on my personal account, like be very effective with, different government agencies, SWIFMA, et cetera, and so they might be a good, the water quality aspect, that could be an interesting.
We need that. We're gonna need some data.
I don't know them though, personally or professionally, so we might wanna reach out and just see, I don't know.
It's going next year.
If they're,
It's going in turf.
Yeah, see if they're interested. I think they'll want to talk to you more, probably, so. Get on a boat and be like, yeah,
I was
look, it's
glad to
right
see you
there,
here.
it's right
Thank you
there.
so much
Yeah,
for
of
being here,
course,
for
I
real.
wouldn't miss it. Alright,
Yeah.
I'll
Alright.
see you, have a great weekend.
Be cool. You too.
So when do you get solar panels on top of the new city building?
They're already on there. We got about a megawatt between all three buildings. Very large system. Yeah, so
How you
the
feeling?
new building has, the big main building has it's a 500-ish megawatt,
Where?
or not megawatt, sorry, 500 kilowatt system. So very, very large, very, very large.
Want some water?
Compared to what? It should be better. Carl is working with, actually that's where he left TECO. He's been working with our HVAC team to kind of like tweak some things to make sure that we're getting the.
They got it cleared out.
efficiency we should get. One of the buildings is technically net zero, I'm not getting this based on the solar. So, it's getting there. It's getting, but certainly, I mean, our building.
Bit rather that than other stuff, right?
About 60,000. It's down to 1,000. Significant.
Now you gotta gain it back. We want to eat some of this food.
Very,
So,
very, very.
I know that I communicated with you about whether you wanted Jordan to update.
Right, yeah, that's a very big discussion.
Because safety's going through right now. And you have to.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, just like everything, there's pros and cons, It would take a lot of, the biggest thing is it's gonna take more capital probably than the city has to buy out the infrastructure, because we have to pay them for everything. And right now, I don't, right now I don't know how we can afford like that. We're having a hard time affording the other stuff. Yeah.
Because the cost of
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I saw.
It was nice to see you.
I'm just sure.
Okay, I think we've met probably one of these ones, but I came on. Sustainability and resilience.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You guys should really walk the walk.
Yeah, we're doing it. It's just being called right now, and hopefully we'll get our team.
They love it.
They love it, right? The guy that was interviewed said, boy, I was proved wrong, you know? Yeah, you too.
Hopefully today actually, I'm gonna go and try to get some.
Okay.
And it's all Wednesday afternoons with the best, so it's on Friday. The next one I have available is October 1st, so I have some days away, but, things are calling that or whatever, so that I'm also.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, because, we're really gonna escalate probably with the new rate hike, because that's when we're really gonna get them, so this gives us some time to plan, to start talking bigger insight.
Yeah.
I mean, we always integrate that, with someone who can give us information.
Yeah, we were here to continue.
Yeah, and, we know when to escalate, when to share things and when not to. It's just, figuring out what's going on, so that, we can.
Yep, and if, long as problems go well,
Yeah.
He rattles off numbers, I just told him a couple times.
My ride while I could.
Right, Candace or something. It's a community Candace.
All right, how you doing?
He seems really good.
Yes.
So we have solar, we have EV.
He understands. He's lived through the.
I actually, unfortunately, I got to run. We just had a baby. And, she's got, thank you so much. We got it. I'll see you around. I'll be in Boston.
For all the, PR, where we live right now, they have a lot of that.
Oh, it's like a lot of that happened previously.
They're over 5 megawatts of solar, we're just over, we're like at 1.
They were saying last week that was part of like.
Well, she showed me this house.
No.
It is, but, it's not gonna be a take-off in 2 years.
And just, they leverage financing too, just like.
Yes, Mom.
Utilities.
Good.
Financing, there's ways that, you're able to make money for the county by leveraging the financing.
What
that
made
they
it-
have.
what made it so
They have mechanisms to do that.
Yeah.
So it's smart accounting a lot of times to finance it rather than just pay the whole chunk right on.
Builders are on entire
I mean,
If you're gonna have the money.
yeah, that's kind of one of the things, it's not only what we can do, it's also fiscally responsible to
Yes.
these investments. And Carl's job is to show the math, to show that on paper, it's done a really good job, especially the last 6 months, I think they've done a better job of like getting those numbers in front of.
Hey, Doc. Thanks for coming out, right?
The city leaders of the city and for I think there's still some things, like just foundation education. They're like, why do I take the building?
Yes.
They're like, we only want to know some solar, if it offsets 100, if we can pay it back in 5 years, and we're like, well, that doesn't make sense. You're living in like an alternative reality, they don't understand.
No, even the gas doesn't do that. The power plants don't offset any.
That's what, these are the expectations that we're gonna approach, and they're like, whoa, we need to come back down and level set on what are realistic expectations for the solar standards for products. So we're doing some of that. And even just like the warranty and how long they last, they don't know. They're like, okay, yeah, we're gonna be paying this system off for the next 10 to 15 years, and then the next 15 to 20 years, we get free electricity minus the maintenance costs, and Carl does those calculations, he does it.
There's no maintenance.
Yeah.
I mean,
We've had some with storms, unfortunately, but,
scheme of things.
Yeah.
But he, he's very conservative, super conservative. So more than likely, our will be less. More than likely, the maintenance will be less. And it's like, just to make sure that we're not overcompensating for the
Yeah, it's.
Because then if we, if it takes us 11 years and we said 10, then I would say, probably 5 is up to 6. And that's another thing we're trying to get people is like we can move them. Because they're like, oh, we're gonna like replace this. And you're so much more like, well, well, we actually just look at the say, so I'll talk to the and then we talk about so I don't understand. I mean, to be honest, I don't know that I don't think about so new that a lot of people just don't get it.
Yeah.
We don't have a or we weren't really involved in it when we were putting on the
And so.
No, I got 15 years ago, I got, I was one of the first. Like, that uncertainty in the future, I mean, it's a totally different. Yeah, I think that was.
Yeah. Like, I don't even off-site, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Maybe time of day, maybe other birthday, it's like a meal time, let's make someone think about like that. But I mean, the library also, I think, works great, it's perfect.
I think it's easy parking.
Yeah.
It's, well, the previous meeting, it
Yeah. I mean, it's not, nowhere in the city other than like US
parking downtown.
Yeah, I know, and I agree, so I'm happy to not take a drive, like, you know, parking pass. I do, because I'm driving but I know, previously I was working at Oreo, which is not that far from and we get, employees get a stipend, but it's only about $45. Doesn't even but those I handle that, thankfully. Yeah, well,
Yeah. Yeah, I did, it was my first exposure.
And that is, so, we have a team. What does that mean? Right? That's how people feel, so I feel it's inside. Now I gotta stay here, because I have a team in this house.
Or they say, this is contaminated, and then they double down on it.
But the question becomes, how often do you get these houses? And so, several counties,
South Park, became a podcaster, like Charlie Kirk was in there. And as part of the other kids, this is my stuff, these are my talking points. I'm the one who said that. Horrible stuff.
David. It goes back to, the first season was about, when we were kids, when there was that, big push of Christian homeschooling. It was like a form of brainwashing, really. Yeah. That where the umbrella idea came from, and it led to use moms for families. A lot of Judopsy stuff, focus on the family, and then was further by Catholic and Mosaic. But the newest iteration of the document, the second season, focuses on choir choir, which was when we were teenagers, there was this uptick of high energy contemporary Christian events that happened around the country that made the kids really fired up. It was huge productions.
Yeah,
These had hundreds of thousands of each show. And it was threatening to be a Christian soldiers. And like literally, take up your, you have to do this, and that's how they get down. Those kids are now adults.
Okay, everybody. We got David, Divine, Vic coming up here to show us, to do a demonstration of how to utilize these solar panels. All right?
once again,
No. Let them do it.
this is the system that I created, emergency use.
We're going to put down the typical right here.
Oh, okay.
This system right here,
No, this is what the CP. this guy to come and help us and show us how to do this. All right, so please, let's, everybody come in and let's show him some respect and show him, learn this process that he has here, which is gonna be some very, very valuable, information for us.
Once again, I created this for 2 rooms for hurricane, in case we lost power. I created this for less than $1,000. Okay? Basically, the system I'm using it is for about 200 watts. In the bedroom, you probably use the fan, a TV, a charger, DVD. That's roughly about 100 watts. You can go more, you can create more wattage by getting a bigger inverter. You can get probably a 4,000, 8,000 watt inverter from Amazon or Walmart for about $75 to $100.
Let me put a pause right there for a minute. David, can you please explain to everybody what the different parts are so they'll understand exactly what they're looking at?
These 2 items are inverters. This right here is 1,500 watts continuous. Okay, this one is 1,000 watts continuous. This right here is a solar output where you can hook up more solar panels. This right here only holds about 400 watts. Okay, these are regulators so you can monitor the solar panels. This right here are bus bars, positive and negative. All these items you can get from Home Depot, Harbor Freight, $5, $15. Chump change that you spend every day.
Can you increase this from 400 to 800 by having 2 of these in series?
Yes, yes. If you want to add more wattage and solar panels, you just keep on adding more solar panel outputs. So, like I said, I use this for hurricane purposes. That's it. I got a golf cart. I use the batteries off my golf cart. I can power off my golf cart, or I can use it for the motors. It charges my golf carts. I can also watch TV and do whatever I can when the power's out.
How long does this last without having?
Okay, when it comes to the battery, a 12-volt battery holds 100 watts, 100 hour watts.
Mm-hmm.
So 36 volts, that's 300 hours.
So you can run your refrigerator off of this?
You would have to get a bigger inverter, like an air condition, a wall unit. It would take about 800 watts. So I would get a 4,000 to 8,000 watt inverter, and I would probably get 250 watt or 2,000 watt solar panels to hook up with the system and make it run. But it's real simple. It doesn't take a rocket scientist.
Now your panels, can they be elevated, go around up to?
Okay, my panels. Let me see. I got this on the side of my house right here. So y'all can see it.
Oh, okay.
That's on the side of my home.
On the side.
On the side. I don't have it on the roof because I don't want no leaks.
It's a ground mount.
Huh?
Ground mount.
On the side of,
Yes,
so on the side of the house or the side of the ground?
side of the house.
Okay, that's all right.
Well, I want to ask you just a simple explanation on how it would connect together. So you have those solar panels,
Yes.
right? And so you have 2 lines coming off of those.
There's the solar panels. I take the solar panels and plug it into this output right here.
You got the covers on.
Yes, they have plugs, you can just plug in. This right here is bus bars. I got a positive bus bar and a negative. I got a 12 volt, a 36, a 3-foot, copper ground wire that I put into the ground. I connect that to this, run it, hook the positive and negative right here to my golf cart, and go from there.
Where would you put your storage battery?
My golf cart. My golf cart, I run the positive and negative, boom, boom, that's it. And I can watch TV or do whatever I want all day. Run the fan, charge it.
But your golf cart is a 12 volt DC battery, right?
36 volt.
36 volt.
Yes.
So how do you watch TV from, you know, a TV that you plug into your 120 outlet?
Basically, through the inverter.
Oh, okay, and you got,
And I just plug it
and you
in.
plug that in right
And
there.
I have the surge right
Yeah,
here.
DC runs through the inverter, changes to AC. So,
Yes. And then you have the best inverter to get is a sine wave. It's a pure energy, and it's a safety. It's like a safety energy when you're dealing with computers and TVs. That's what you would want to use. Anything else?
So, my question would be, for everybody else's benefit, to be clear to everybody, first of all, the reason that we brought David to show this is because Tampa Electric Company and all these other electric companies think they have us in a corner, right? And they'll give you and start charging you all this extra money and stuff like this. This right here is a protest. This is an ultimate protest. What are we protesting? What are we saying? We're saying outright, listen, we can take 2 big appliances off the panel box, right? Just shut them off. Apply it to here. And during that week, you're gonna see a decrease in your bill. During that month, you'll see a decrease in your bill, significant, right? Why? Because you have solar panels that are set up there in this system. Simple system, inexpensive, set it up, and that's it. So every week you pick 2 to 3 days out of the week that you do this on some appliances. Cut them off, plug them into the strip here, and what you have. Energy that's not being billed for.
That's if you have a house, right? But if you live in an apartment.
If you have an apartment, it's a bit different.
Yeah.
It's very, very different.
Yeah.
But, you know, in the case of houses, this can be done.
You can set up 200 watts out on the balcony. Easy. It wouldn't be a problem.
Mm-hmm. That's one panel. 200 watts is one not even one panel.
Right.
You know, you need one solar panel, size of a table.
Yeah.
You could put it on your balcony in your apartment and.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's a couple of challenges, however, with the idea, the cost that you would have to incur to have the batteries to be able to run a refrigerator or something larger, that's something to take into consideration. But the system that he's talking about with the 200 watt panel, run it through a very simple DIY solution to run everything else, so that you don't have to have a battery solution to store, just to take the TV or the fan or something else off of the grid. Helps to reduce your bill by, $15, $20 a week, maybe $75 a month if you're using it that much.
And that's
There's a number of things, there's more expenses involved in doing some of this thing that you're talking about, what you're envisioning. There's a little bit more cost to that, but this is a very simple, direct DIY way that anybody can, as Walter was saying, protest
Mm-hmm.
what the things are going on.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a million YouTube videos on how to make that thing, you know.
But the practical application of it in the community, for instance, right? Somebody finds out you have this, they're like, listen, how can I do that same thing you're doing? And then ultimately, this is a protest.
Yeah.
And more than just a protest, now what we've done is we've actually introduced solar in a very significant way, in a very legal way. This isn't illegal, there's nothing legal about it. You're not cutting wires, you're not leaving anything off it, no. This is very legal, you plugged it into something, you have every right to do that.
Yep.
And it's cheaper than the Generac system.
Yeah.
All day long.
Much cheaper.
Yeah.
Now, if you want to go bigger, you get a bigger inverter. Like I said, you can get for about $75 to $100 off of Amazon, 4,000 watts. Okay.
You got how much wattage you have now?
It takes 600 watts to start a microwave. It takes roughly 1,500 watts to run a refrigerator.
The dryer, what about the dryer? The dryer is
So,
It's a clothesline, and you put it out. The sun comes out. It uses solar technology to dry your clothes.
you could go bigger with just a bigger inverter and more solar panels. And a battery or two.
I had a question. You mentioned this would cost a little bit under $1,000. If we had a community come together and purchase the equipment and then maybe have a party to make these or something like that, how much do you think the cost would be reduced? And I'm sorry if I'm putting you on the spot and you have to price it out. But would it be cheaper to buy these things in bulk and have a community come together and learn how to do it together, and then everyone in the neighborhood has one kind of thing?
You could do that. Like I said, this right here was less than $1,000 to actually really run a lot of the major appliances in the house. It's probably gonna cost you about $5,000 each house.
And don't forget, you don't have to pay for, you don't have to pay anybody to make it. You know,
You make it.
Yeah, you make it yourself. So that cuts a lot of stuff out.
Right.
A lot of things out.
Otherwise you call this man right here. You come.
But he was asking, how long have you had this?
I done
Yeah,
had this
how long
probably
lasts?
for about 4 years.
4 years?
And keep in mind also, you have this strip, outlet strip. That's there for a reason. So all those appliances that you have, you gotta have the right plug for it. You know, and make sure it's there.
compatible.
Yeah.
My only question is if, I know we were saying like this work good if you have a house, right? Cause she asked a question about can you do it in an apartment, but this be feasible for an apartment, can you still use it?
Yeah, you can still use it. I mean, I mainly cook outside. I like to grill.
Okay.
So I ain't worried about no stove and none of that, but.
That's what I did when hurricane came. I was on the grill.
I still was able to function when the lights was out. I'm the type of person I like to do for self. I don't be dependent on a lot of stuff that's going on with what y'all dealing with, because I'm gonna figure out a way to not have to deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I just see us in the future getting the funds to do this, bringing you down and doing this as a community town hall, because this is what they need. They need to learn how to be efficient. Like, they need to learn how, I was out of college for 14 days and I'm a single mom. So my mom and my sister and my brother, they packed up, they got scared, they left. I was like, I can't leave. I just can't pack up and leave. Because it was just, I was scared. I got stuck, I stayed. And the whole time, you could video my mom now. Hey, I'm in the car, charged on phone. How do I start a grill? I never grilled before. My brother come over there and use my grill. So it was a lot of things that I had to learn. And I think having this will make me feel really, really safe. I have a generator at home that I bought for 2 storms ago, but it's so heavy. I don't know how to start a generator. They have instructions, it's brand new, they have never been out the box. They even have the little white stuff around it still when you pick it up.
You say that today, you have somebody come start it, because the longer that sits, the harder it's gonna be for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Generators are expensive too. I mean, they go through gallons of gas,
You know, there's another good use for this, because a lot of senior citizens are on medical, machines
Yes.
in their apartment.
Yeah.
And I was on the CERT, the Citizens Emergency Response Team, and we had to get a young child that was hooked up to a lot of medical equipment. So, so she's in an apartment. If the elevator, you can't run it inside. Who's gonna be outside when you know when the hurricanes splash?
I think there's no gas for the.
Exactly. You know, so something like this would have been really, really, really beneficial to a lot of people in an apartment complex. Some people could not be relocated to a shelter because of their health issues.
And it's saving $75 a month, it's paid off in a year.
For real.
That's
And-
$900 you saved your first year, which is not the cost of what it takes to.
So like you said, if we all got together, bought the equipment, put it together, and we can offer it to these people that need it, because they're on fixed income costs, and our social security.
So, I'll be devil's advocate. The issue is when we run into getting people to participate with money that they don't see. We can talk about all day long, let's come together, let's cooperatively buy, but if I'm month to month, I cannot justify investing in a system that I don't see benefit from. So, we have to start educating people.
Yes.
Because we have people who buy generators, but for the same cost of buying a generator and putting the gas in, if you got 2 solar panels, put together an inverter system so that you could run, you don't have to worry about getting gas or riding around trying to, you can stay at home, run your basic appliances, and if you invest a little bit more, $1,500, $2,000, right? You can buy some batteries, you can run your refrigerator, and unfortunately, you won't be able to drive, you should drive. But you can run your refrigerator, and run your microwave, and we would see the same, don't plug the microwave up, cook it outside. Because it's safer. And that little expense, especially us being in Florida, it's not an expensive investment. And we can say that we can put a solar system together for $2,500. And that means that instead of you going to Starbucks or you buying at the grocery store, you stop that money to the side. But it takes education. We have to start talking about to our communities and demonstrate to ourselves that having a savings plan is important. Having a plan, period, is important. Because if we put a plan together and then we follow it, then we can eventually execute on the ultimate goal, whatever it is that we set.
It's gonna take a lot of logistics to get it going.
There's not a whole lot of logistics involved because you have somebody who put something together for $1,000. He's got a golf court and just sitting there, and he said, hey, from my golf court, I can run stuff in my house. So the same thing in the community. If you say that for $2,500, if you can save, what is that? $200 a month for a year, because you live in Florida, that might be beneficial for you. And if you want to run your refrigerator and not have to run around, the young lady got a brand new generator in the house, she had never pulled the cord on it. That she needed to get somebody to pull that today so that something happens.
So she didn't waste her money.
This is the same
Pull the dryer out
hardware
of here.
this is the same hardware that you could get a tax break on during the tax holiday?
No. Yeah, well, yes, it was the same part we're doing the tax holiday. You can buy all this stuff and not have to pay taxes.
I don't know, I'm not good with DI, like, I would need someone to show me how to do it.
But if you buy it, then you can call them and you can come and
Okay, that's
for
what
a
you
couple
do.
dollars, you
Yeah.
can help put it together.
And you're based in Orlando? Cause you mentioned, people being prepared. I saw people be prepared, they had their generators, but last year we had no gas. Like,
Exactly.
even like we dealt with that, so that's a reality, right?
Right.
So, but if you teach people how to do this, like, they may not be engaged or encouraged via social media, especially the older people, right?
Yes. most
Because,
definitely.
like, I learned by someone showing me how to do it, not that,
Part of the thing of having a generator is the preparation beforehand. You can't have a generator and then the power goes out, and now you're looking for gas. You have to be prepping, and so you have to buy 5 gallons of gas 3 or 4 months ahead of time, so that when the gas runs out, you've got 20, 30 gallons put aside. But because just like what you said, if we don't know, all we've been told is buy a generator, and the power goes out. And nobody says you gotta put oil in it, you gotta get service, you gotta have gas for it. And so when stuff happens, because we're living every single day, nobody said, hey, what is your plan? We're just putting the little pieces together, and then when stuff happens, we're trying to execute, not having a full understanding of what's required. And that's a large problem in the community. So it's very important for him to come down and say, hey, it's doable and possible. And the thing that you said, during the tax holiday, you can buy all of this stuff and save 10, 15% on it. And so now the cost is reduced. And just for a little bit of money, he's saying that, hey, I live in Orlando, but if you call me, I'll make time to come in and help you out. And then, like what you're saying, if we all come together and we buy in bulk, and he comes down and he's helping show everybody how to put wrenches to screws, then we have 4 or 5 systems in the community, and we have solar panels up, and if you live in an apartment, or you live in a house, now you don't have to depend on anyone outside of the community to help you. You've already started to work on that cooperative economics and cooperative knowledge and know-how in order to start being more self-reliant.
You probably can get a kit for Harbor Freight for about $157. Okay, then you can get a battery or 2 for about $300 some. Right. Then you can buy an inverter offline for about $100. That's the power of 100 watts.
Right.
One home, so that's roughly about $600 tops. On your dime whenever you feel like it.
I'm gonna do a separate story.
Hey, you better tell them now, if you come, it's not pro bono.
Right. I'm looking out for it. I'm telling you, you can't do it for free.
If I go down there, it ain't pro bono.
In life, we all we gotta have them time.
We start down here in the city, because we don't have to teach us.
Electronics,
He does take cash out, Square, money order.
I see this being very beneficial, especially if we can get it to underserved people, underserved areas. This will be.
And this is what we have to do, we have to bring stuff like this in town halls and seminars like this to, downtown, we're talking about what we're doing in our community, and how we can be funded for, and like, everybody's understanding that, and y'all agree this will help our community, which is kind of how we're gonna write it up and present it to the county commission. Because one thing about them, they wanna be first. They wanna be first, they wanna be like, oh, I'm in the community, and this is what he's doing, and we're funding, the community time, and he came down here, and he said, community, and how we want to fund. It is for the community,
So part of what, piggybacking off what you said, going to county commissioners and city is great, fine, wonderful, but until we put foot in the ground and in the dirt, and do it ourselves, nobody's saying anything. So, just like you have said, this is great. Just like you said, it would be wonderful to have it. That's what we start. You say, you make an appointment with them, say, in 3 months, I want to keep up with you, email, text messages. When I get my little stuff together, we get 5 or 6 families together, we buy this equipment, he gives us a list. He said $600. You can use it and have a battery back. So we get these 5 or 6, 7 little families together in the community. We will all fund the money together. We come up with a donation that we've given for gas and dinner for coming down and showing us how to do it. Once we have a working model and we have several families who are committed to it, then we take that as a demonstration, as a pilot program, say to the city, hey, we've done this, we'd like you to support it.
Are we
other applicant, and I'm gonna handle that contract. And what's gonna happen, you get the city and county government involved. The first thing we're gonna say. Regulation, same thing, and you know, this, when that's gonna be heard, like I said, you got, DC power that was being converted, you know, DC power. Now, somebody touched the wrong thing, because they had been educated or whatever. Now you got somebody who's going to do a lawsuit, who's not going to be heard, so they're going to say, okay, we can't let this go out to the public.
Well, this is the thing, this is open, there's a camera going in the top, that's somebody.
You can't have batteries, in an apartment complex in the building, you got to be outside, even at the house, very clearly at the house.
Well, there's solutions to go over that as well.
Right, and that's what they're gonna be trying to govern, take it to the big governments.
So if we just do it in the community, I see what you're saying.
Get them off the back.
Well, I did take the AEC. So, as far as electricity and all that stuff. I'm going back to the parts. When I bought this, some of the pieces, the kit, it was $99 for years ago. It went up $60 like 4 years.
Right.
Yeah, I would take that.
Yeah.
So once they start, once people start seeing this, it's most definitely.
He ain't ready for you.
I wonder if we can grant.
No.
They ain't ready for you.
In the next 2 years, you're not gonna need
Not
grant.
the federal government, there's the others that need grants besides the federal government and the foundation. You know, because the way I'm thinking about this, I was just in Oakland, and I went to the Black Panther Party Museum, and learned that the reason we have school lunches is because the Black Panther Party started giving out school lunches, and the government didn't want them to get credit for it. So the government took and started doing that program. And I can see the same sort of thing happen. When you create a self-help program that helps a lot of people, the government doesn't want us to get the credit for doing these things. And so they might actually take on the project and make it more widespread so that they can quash the movement. So I think that's like a good learned lesson from, you know, history that we can maybe take on.
That's very good.
I wanted to add something. We have present here folks from different organizations. For example, we have folks from Food and Water Watch. I belong with Walter to LULAC, the League of United Latin American Citizens. Brenda belongs to many groups also, and I can't keep track of who's with that. Okay? But sometimes what escapes us is the times, okay? We're taking attacks from the other side. It's almost like there's another, we have a new target on our backs. Okay? The term self-reliance, that mantra is always with us. In other words, that call to action, self-reliance never leaves us. And I think that just as Rick mentioned, as you mentioned the kind of example of the Black Panthers, there are grants out there. And I know nothing about grants, but I know that there are people among us who know that. Usually we think of one group that goes out there and gets a grant and does their thing. But let's think about working not in our silos. We work in silos, okay? It's natural, but we shouldn't. The example we have now, the brother David had, okay, whether it's in the video or whatever, we should take an example like this and maybe have like a town hall or whatever, like a traveling show that's called like that, in different vulnerable communities. And be willing to go out as different organizations together under one umbrella, not necessarily the Sierra Club. Okay, Walter does a great job organizing. But often I think what happens is, I can say myself, when I see the surplus doing something, I say, great, and I just stand back and let them do it. I think that we need to kind of take an example like this that David has, and as a group, say, let's band together and maybe just be creative and just move forward so that our backs don't become the target that they are right now. And move forward and maybe look for grants, take creative license, and take examples like this, in other words, like another thing like food banks or and the term escapes me, not going to see in a moment, but survival tactics that we need. Not wait for the hurricane to come and then figure out what we're going to do. We prepare ourselves for the moment because we are in a, says the WAR, but not in a sense of violence, but we are in a WAR for survival of what's good.
Right.
And take the steps forward and really act to know how to prepare ourselves for those moments that are critical. So, without running out of words, I think we need to take an example of what is happening right here and not think about what we're going to do in 4 or 5 months, but maybe take examples of what Brooke mentioned. Look for, money doesn't solve everything.
Right.
But at least it helps us decide, let's not just talk about what can be done in the future, but the idea of maybe, what Brooke mentioned, that a community can come up with ideas together, like a community hub, in which small towns, maybe even Leesville or something, to consider having